again, everyone, and welcome to the Edge of Healthcare, where we are talking to healthcare leaders with business tips and things that you can learn to put into use today. My name is Martin Cody, SVP of Sales and Marketing for Medicat Health. And when I saw this next person's name on the schedule, I was ecstatic because there's no one that I know of that's more prolific in the area of healthcare and digital marketing than today's guest on the Edge of Healthcare, John Lynn. So John, welcome to you and thanks for taking some time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think when you say prolific, it just means I'm noisy. I make a lot of noise, but I've been doing it a long time.
Well, if someone hasn't seen you on any of the social platforms, it's because they have blinders on or they just aren't trying, because you are prolific. The visibility is outstanding. And before we kind of talk a little bit about how you are able to do what you do in that space, I want to go back and first learn, why did you get into healthcare?
You know, I don't think it was purposeful, which I hear that's a lot true with a lot of people in healthcare. I was working in Hawaii at BYU Hawaii and, doing system administration. I'm a tech guy by background. That's why I'm tech guy on Twitter, right? And I ended up finding a job. We wanted to get off the rock, as we call it, and found a job at UNLV in their health and counseling center. But it was a university health and counseling center for the students, so more ambulatory, versus academic research organization. So anyway, I got the job and I moved there, and so it was a little bit of luck, right? I will say though, when I was in Hawaii and I was about to move to Vegas and, start working in my first job in healthcare, I did say to people, I was like, wow, how cool would it be if something I did actually saved someone's life or like improved their health? So there was this feeling of like, wow, this could be really cool to work in healthcare versus, before working in higher ed, which was useful and valuable because, we're educating students, or like BYU Hawaii's mission is to proclaim peace internationally. Like we were doing some really amazing work there. But to move into healthcare at UNLV was quite eye-opening for me as far as the purpose of what could be done. And certainly I know, some doctors, nurses kind of fawn at the idea that, IT could actually save a life or improve the care. But I think that is true. Like it's not direct, it's indirect, that's for sure. But, if I do the things right, I can enable the nurses and doctors to be able to better care for the patients, and that makes an impact. So, that's how I got into it. Was I got the job, moved to Vegas, and definitely, learned. In fact, I remember when I interviewed for the job, they said, "Tell me about your healthcare experience," and I'm like, "Well, I've been to the doctor." I don't think they thought that was a satisfying answer.
I like the background in tech, so that was obviously a conscious decision. So what prompted you to get into tech, and then follow that up with what year you moved from Hawaii to Vegas?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that, because at the end of the day, I'm not a pure healthcare guy for sure. Like, I live, breathe, eat, and sleep in it every day. So I am purely devoted to it now. But that's my passion isn't necessarily healthcare. My passion is what you said, which is tech can improve many processes, including healthcare. And it turns out in healthcare, there's a lot of opportunity for technology to improve what we're doing. And to be fair, tech isn't always the answer. I'm not a purist who's like, well, everything needs to be technology. And no, you choose the right solution, but tech can enable a lot of solutions that wouldn't otherwise be possible. And that's what excites me the most. So I think that's the most interesting part. As far as when I got in, I moved to Vegas 19 years ago, I think. So what is that for this 2003 or something?
Yes,
somewhere in
there. So you were a tech person by kind of desire, passion, and then married, per se, the ability for tech to improve healthcare delivery, healthcare administration, healthcare findings. I agree with you. You aren't the one holding the scalpel or, doing the surgery per se, but boy, there's a heck of a lot of technology that helps make that procedure more efficient, more successful behind the scenes, and in addition to equipping the surgeon with knowledge. So there's a definite role for technology in healthcare, and I'm glad a tech person has now found some footing in healthcare, so to speak. So that's awesome. I think of digital marketing, kind of your specialty, if you will, and I always compare and contrast it because I'm old to traditional marketing and what we may have learned in college and the 4Ps and those sorts of things, which go way back. But what was your philosophy as it relates to bringing technology to healthcare via the marketing discipline?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you said. First, a little anecdotal story about what you said, which is I was interviewing someone about healthcare and the evolution of healthcare and technology in healthcare. And they said something interesting. 20 years ago, if IT went down, they were frustrated. They couldn't get to their email and they couldn't get to their whatever, right? And it was problematic and you'd get in trouble for it in a way, right? But it didn't really impact patient care. Now, if health IT goes down, if the EHR goes down, that's a dramatic impact on the care that patients are receiving, let alone lab results and pharmacy orders and all of those other things and the integrated nature of it. So I think that's the interesting thing that's happened is that tech hasn't, before wasn't making a clinical impact the way it is now. So I think that's the interesting evolution. And what's also interesting in that same evolution is if you look at most of the IT systems out there, a lot of them and a lot of aspects of them are that they have become like big marketing engines. Like think about value-based care. What do I have to do in value-based care to make sure that this thing is working properly? Or even if you a revenue cycle management approach, or even your digital front door, all of these aspects at the core of what they are is a marketing engine. They have to market to the patient to convince them to show up to their appointment that they forgot about, or that they don't want to go to, or or to schedule an appointment for a follow-up visit that they forgot to do. That's a marketing problem, right? Getting someone to take their medication, that's a marketing problem. And so, you look at a lot of the evolution of IT. Sure, there's some back-end systems that document, your visit and make sure billing happens and things like that. But so many of the problems in healthcare are really marketing problems. So I will say it's interesting that you see me as a marketing person. I'm a tech guy by background and, stumbled upon rolling out a media organization at Healthcare IT Today. So, we've published, 17,000 articles. I've written half of them. We've done 700 video and audio podcasts, right? So, it's a media company for sure. But then we also launched Sway Health, which is our marketing community. So it's funny that you see me as a marketer. And to be fair, the reason I've been successful as a media company and with our marketing conference and community is because of my marketing skills. Right. But it's funny. I don't self-identify as a marketer, although I certainly leverage it.
I would say you leverage it better than most. And I want to anecdotally go back to a couple of things you mentioned. And first of all, I completely agree with you. The evolution in the last 20 years of IT in the terms of healthcare, you're right, it was just an email communication platform 20 some odd years ago. There's not a nursing home, SNF, ambulatory surgery center, health system, hospital, what have you, where it's not mission critical, where things don't stop if the IT solution is not working properly. What I find interesting juxtaposed to that is just how far we still have to go to have something even remotely close to a digital front door, even remotely close to interoperability. Case in point, anecdotally, today, I was told by a physician's office that they couldn't put the order that I need for a procedure into the portal. They were going to have to snail mail me the order. So I'm scratching my head with that capacity and just frustrated by how much further we have to go, which leads me to kind of, you may not identify as a marketing guy, you may identify as a tech guy that just happens to have a really impressive side gig as a marketing media company. But what do you think are the top, say, 2 or 3 issues facing healthcare today from a marketing perspective? And I want to look at it from the lens of, say, a health system and then from the lens as a payer? What type of communications do they have to get to their quote patient/members?
Interesting. Well, I do self-identify as an entrepreneur. So that just my method of entrepreneurship is marketing and written word and media. But anyways,
it's impressive.
Thank you. No, I mean, so it's interesting it's an interesting question. What are the challenges? And I think you highlighted the biggest challenge facing marketers, in the industry. And that to me is that the info and the innovations are not equally distributed. And you highlighted it perfectly in your example. The fact that they want to snail mail you the order illustrates not that it's not possible to do it another way, but it's that they haven't adopted it. Because we know that there's hundreds of companies that could solve that exact problem with an electronic solution. And for whatever reason, politics, they didn't need to, whatever, right? They haven't adopted it. And so it's not because it's not possible. And so that's what we see a lot in healthcare, is that there's a lot of people that are just doing it the way that they've always done it, because they can, and they're getting paid well to do it in this old archaic way, and they don't need to optimize it because they're fine. They're making the money that they want to make, and they can burden you. And, in a lot of cases, you don't have an option. There's not 7 providers like that in your area, and they're probably not covered by your insurance or whatever else, right? And so they can get away with having a terrible experience. And so to me, that is the biggest number one problem that we have in healthcare IT, and is a marketing problem, right? That, if you want a solution to the problem, there probably is a technology out there to solve it. And someone has probably implemented it and proven that it's better. But many organizations either don't know about it, or they don't want to implement it, or they aren't motivated to implement it, and there's nothing forcing them to. So I'd say that is the number one problem, is that there's great solutions out there, and there just hasn't been the motivation, the need, or even, a lot of them are just busy seeing patients, so they don't realize that there is a better way. And so because they're not focused on it, they haven't implemented it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I look at this not as a provider issue. I think we as an organization, or we as an industry, have put a lot of burden on providers over the last 25 years from the standpoint, and you mentioned it earlier, electronic medical records. And we were both around the time when they were initiated and introduced and then mandated. And then there was CCHIT and meaningful use 1, 2, 3, and all of the different things that we've now put on to providers. And you're absolutely correct. These solutions exist today. They're tried, they're tested, they're proven, they're successful. What do you think? You mentioned politics being potential a reason why more and more organizations are not adopting these. But if you could, because I have a theory on this, but I would like to hear your thoughts on the number one reason why these solutions aren't being adopted. Could be part marketing, but what do you think it is?
I mean, I think the biggest problem is bandwidth. And then also looking at strategic priorities of what they need to do. And so when you look at it, I was just thinking last night about a friend who implemented a big EHR. Let's just say it was a very epic implementation, and they were implementing it, right? And afterwards, he told me, and this was shortly after the go live, he's like, John, I have 5,000 tickets of things I need to work on to help improve the EHR. And he's like, and some of them are 2-hour fixes, easy, right? And some of them are 6 months projects. He's like, how do I prioritize which ones of those I'm going to do and how I'm going to approach this, right? So, that's like a microcosm, the EHR, which is actually a massive impact on any healthcare organization.
Correct.
It's like when you have 5,000 tickets or complaints from your customers, right? And many IT organizations see their users as customers now, and that they're providing a service to those customers. Like, how do you do that, right? Let alone how do I go and see that next shiny object, right? And the next latest AI tool that I bolt on, and do I want to go through that contracting process? And do I, so to me, it really goes down to the number of opportunities is more than the bandwidth of the organizations to be able to implement. And so, yeah, they would love to. And as much as any health IT organization owner says, oh, it's turnkey solution that can just do it, minimal effort with you, it just is not the reality in healthcare. You still got to go through the security review. You got to go through the clinical review. You got to make sure that the privacy and data is proper, right? And let alone does this actually work, right? Like, and does it work with our flow and our system and integration? So it's much bigger than, there's no turnkey in healthcare as much as we want it to be. There's easier and harder. That's fair. But you can't just casually implement it. And so I think that is one of the big problems.
And I think it would be interesting in those 5,000 tickets, what percentage of them have surfaced in the 500 prior implementations of said software that currently are still not being resolved? That's my own pet peeve. As it relates to the bandwidth issue, and kind of my theory on this is it's a leadership issue. If you're not availing yourself of the solutions that are out there to help your customers, help your members, help your patients, and you are having people receive mail orders via the U.S. postal system, that's a leadership issue. Again, my opinion, and to your point, it might be right that the leaders just don't have the bandwidth to address the 500 items that they have, from compliance to prior auth to no surprises, not to mention they've got to do physician recruitment and retention. So it's a very, very difficult job. And I'd be curious, as it relates to you as a media, I'm going to just throw the word mogul, a media mogul out there with a slant in healthcare. For people that are interested in potentially getting into healthcare related media, what are some of the challenges you have had to overcome as that has led you kind of through your progression of organizations? And then we'll talk a little bit more about Sway Health. But if you could think back on, boy, I wish someone would have told me this, it would have saved me weeks, months, years of aggravation, that you would like to impart and share now with someone considering a career in media with a focus on healthcare.
Yeah, well, it turns out that, the famous movie that said, if you build it, they will come, Field of Dreams, right? It turns out that's not true. You can write the best content. You can create the best podcast episodes, videos, whatever. And guess what? They're probably not going to come. Right?
Well, maybe what they were referring to is the tickets will come. The problems will come. The
tickets will come. There's been one exception for that. That's Dr. Glockenflecken, who is amazingly humorous and has done amazing work. He created something that was just so outstanding that they did. That's the only exception I can even think of in this space that got close to that. Maybe a Z-Dog MD a little bit with his music videos and his parodies, right? But otherwise, other than humor, nothing resonates enough to just drive a community of people to listen, hear what you're doing. So what I always tell people is hey, when you're starting with media and when you're building something, you can create the best content in the world and it doesn't matter. Sure, the quality of content may retain them more. It may cause them to come back again and trust you more. So it needs to be at a certain level. Otherwise, you lose credibility and they'll never read you again.
Sure, right.
But once you reach that level, it doesn't drive more traffic. And so you need to spend at the beginning 25% or less of your time creating content and 75% of your time marketing the content. And people don't think about, hey, I need to market the content. It's such a foreign idea to them. But essentially, as a media company, your product is the content. And you have to spend a lot of time and effort marketing the content the way you would any other product. Because your product is the content.
Give me an example of from marketing content as opposed to marketing a physical, tangible product.
Yeah, it turns out it's actually very similar. It's just easier because the bar is the bar to read a piece of content is lower than to buy $100 million EHR system, right? So in that way, but the methods are the same. So an example, you want to build your social following. Well, how are you going to build followers? Just sharing it on social doesn't build followers. You have to go and engage people. You have to follow people. You have to refollow. You have to interact with them, invite them on the episode, etc. Right? Search engine optimization doesn't just happen automatically. You have to do on-site search engine optimization (SEO). You have to do build links. You got to get links from other sites. You got to do internal linking. You got to you have to build all of these things as part of your marketing, email marketing. Okay.
Right.
You want an email newsletter. Well, how are you going to build your list? How are you going to grow the number of people on it? How are you going to build, get everyone to subscribe so that then you can send them the email that, then links to the podcast, video, article, whatever you're doing, right? That's another example. YouTube, you want to grow your YouTube following. How are you going to do that? How are you going to get subscribers? What are you going to push? Are you going to do partnerships? Are you going to do deals like that, right? So all of these things are marketing efforts to be able to market your content. And you need to spend a ton of time, especially in the beginning, doing that. Once you create the machine, it gets better and it's easier. But even then, we're 18 years in and I still continue to work to grow that side of it because that's the key to, as I said, if you build it, they won't come unless you tell them to.
Would you believe that that's probably one of the top 1 or 2 areas that organizations completely underestimate with regards to ROI on the investment? They think it's just going to happen much faster than it does.
Yeah. No, I mean, we see that a lot, right? Well, we'll just roll out a blog. And they're like, okay, well, if you write a blog post in the wilderness and nobody reads it, does it matter? The answer's no, right? So, it's like, okay, it's been an interesting shift. And, in the beginning, you had to go to media organizations and have them publish it and hope that they write some sort of editorial coverage for you. And, and you get some good distribution, right? Or you'd go to the HIMSS conference, right? And you'd get distribution there because at the time, that was the only way for those people to discover new solutions. They would go to the HIMSS conference, they'd walk around and be like, oh, wow, look at all these amazing solutions. Well, the internet and blogging, which essentially is just easy publishing online, podcast, video, which has now become so much easier, that's kind of flattened the world, right? Let alone Google searches and all that, right? It's made it so I probably have discovered it before any event, right? And so I can discover all of that information before, but now the problem is different. Before it was actually a little easier. You go to HIMSS, they're all there, you see who's there, and you kind of make your decision. Now, CIOs, the directors of IT, everyone that's dealing with the IT is being inundated by messaging from companies, from thought leaders, from spammers, from everyone else, right?
Yep.
And so they have to cut through the noise. And interesting is like, okay, well, how do you do that as a vendor? And a lot, and then we see the growth of influencers. And why are influencers becoming so valuable? It's because the noise is so loud that many people are saying, I can't listen to all the noise. I'm going to listen to the influencer who listens to all the noise and cuts through it for you so that you don't have to.
Interesting. And you mentioned HIMSS. HIMSS, by the way, is not a paid sponsor of the show. Not yet. And you attend a great many number of conferences around the country and do a wonderful job of interviews and promotion of the conference and takeaways and top 3 things discussed. Given that this is actually being recorded, a couple weeks after the HIMSS in 2024, what have you heard from either healthcare organizations or attendees of healthcare organizations, so to speak, on what is top of mind to them? What are they most interested in solving?
I mean, it's a broad question, right? When you have 30,000 people or whatever it was this year at HIMSS, you have a lot of people who have a lot of different problems depending on what their focus is. And you see that with it, right? So if it's a CIO, their problem may be retention and maybe workforce and maybe burnout, and maybe, managing the Epic and, and a lot of the infrastructure elements and what should be our AI strategy and some of these high level things that, that they have to deal with. Whereas if you're, the director of telehealth, your question is, well, how am I going to do telehealth in this weird environment with weird reimbursement policies and some acceptance and demand from patients, but the doctors don't necessarily like it as much. And, if you're a director of IT infrastructure, you're like, oh, wait, am I supposed to be hosting in the cloud? Am I a data center guy? Am I a cloud guy? What's the multi-cloud look like? How do I approach this? What is the right approach to this? And how do I navigate all of this? And is cloud costs going to grow? And, you're hearing all of those things. If you're a security person, you don't sleep at night, so you're saying, where are some drugs for me to sleep at night? bad strategy. But so they're suffering through like, man, I don't have enough resources, or even if they come with me the resources, can I achieve the goal of securing my organization in a way that a breach doesn't happen? Many are coming around to the fact that a breach is going to happen, and so okay, that's fine. What do I do then? What's my path for how do I, deal with a breach if it happens? What is my planning to be able, how do I do business continuity and disaster recovery amidst a breach, and how does that work? So, we see this wide swath of things. I would say one thing that ironically, is overarching is AI.
I was going to guess.
Every one of them that I just mentioned to you could say AI is, and how are we going to use AI in all of these solutions? And I think that's the most beautiful part of AI, and especially generative AI, which has kind of captured the imagination of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Blockchain came, right? Cryptocurrencies. And people are like, wow, that's pretty exciting. And then you talk to everyone and they're like, I don't know how to use that.
Right.
AI is the opposite. Everyone's like, wow, that's exciting. I can think of about 15 ways this could help me. And that's the coolest part of AI.
Correct. I think the implementation of it and full-scale adoption of it is still a ways off, but if you can find little pieces or challenges to slice off and use, it could have amazing success. I mentioned earlier Sway Health, so I would like you to bring the audience up to speed on Sway Health, what it is and what it does.
Yeah, so Sway.health is, and that's Sway with 2 A's, if they want to check it out. It's our healthcare marketing community. So originally it started as a healthcare B2B marketing community. So how do these health IT companies market to doctors, hospitals, CIO executives in that B2B kind of realm? And we say at Sway Health, we're like, we need you to be successful, because we need your solutions in the market solving the problems that are annoying patients and doctors and nurses, right? So they're like, our goal at Sway Health, the mission is to help them be more successful so that we can improve the environment of healthcare. I literally tell them, I'm like, if your solution doesn't improve something in healthcare, then you shouldn't be here. We don't want you here, right? Like marketing snake oil. But the reality is most of them do have solutions that do solve real problems. And so we need them to be successful. Now, we did expand it. It used to be called HitMic. Sway Health was formerly called HitMic, which was when it was focused on just health IT marketing. But now we've really expanded it to the healthcare marketing at provider organizations, hospital health systems who have real challenges in how do they market their organizations, especially in this world where they're getting their hands slapped for things like the Facebook pixel and tracking it. And them saying, if you're doing that, that's a violation of privacy. And that's a whole complicated discussion that's happening right now. But they're also like, they have a lot of other problems communication wise. How do they communicate even internally or externally with their staff? So, we deal with a lot of those healthcare marketers at providers, hospitals, and health systems, being able to maximize their marketing efforts. Or think about this, the hospital website. You're like, well, it's just a website. What do you mean? Do you realize that most of these hospital websites are like 30,000 pages? And so you're like, what does that mean? And how do we make sure it's updated? And how do we, make sure it's optimized for search engines and that patients are getting the information they need? Like, these are complicated problems that have a real impact on patients. So that's the Sway Health community. It's a community of health IT marketers, healthcare marketers, PR communication professionals at hospitals and health systems. And we bring them together to talk about these challenging problems, because healthcare is a little different, right? Sure, we can pull in stuff from other industries, but there's lots of privacy implications. There's lots of, things that you don't want to say because they come off wrong when you're talking about patients and the impact on patients. So, it's really a special community. We do an annual conference in May this year in Atlanta that, it brings all those people together. But I like to say on the health IT side, they're all the people that were standing next to each other at HIMSS for 3 days and never talked because they were too busy doing their work. So now they come together in Atlanta and get to, commiserate, share, support each other, and improve healthcare marketing.
Given the state of the healthcare industry via marketing, what is one thing that absolutely drives you nuts?
I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't get driven nuts too much. I would say maybe it's the lack of effort, and I think it goes back to what we talked about before, that at many healthcare organizations, they kind of have a monopoly. They kind of, they have enough patients. If you have a 6-month wait list, why do you care? You kind of don't,
Right.
other than you might care about your patients, right? And so, from a business perspective, in many cases, they don't have that motivation. So that's probably the thing that drives me the most nuts, is that you could do better. There are opportunities to do better, to make a better patient experience, to make a better, employee experience, to improve not just your bottom line, but improve the wellness of your community and your population. There's lots of opportunities to be able to do that. And don't get me wrong, I'm a follow the money kind of guy, right? I think there's ways to do it and to improve your bottom line as well.
Completely agree.
And people just don't do it because, they're fine.
Right.
They're doing all right.
You see a lot of that, especially where Medicaid plays kind of with the No Surprises Act, provider data accuracy. And until CMS starts to reenact the fines that they originally started levying, you just don't see folks acting, organizations, payers, health systems, what have you, taking their initiative to do this, because there's, like you said, they're fine right now. They're okay, but until it starts becoming painful, then they'll start moving.
You're highlighting a worse issue, though, and this definitely bothers me, and that is that so many are profiting from the dysfunction, right?
Correct.
That's what you're highlighting, I think. And I've said this about big tech. Big tech's coming in, they're going to transform healthcare, and you're like, that is not true. First of all, they don't care enough. They don't know it, et cetera, right? If Apple was to create an EHR, which everyone was like, why doesn't Apple create an EHR? It'd be so much better. I was like, no, they'd still be replicating the same government policies, reimbursement regulations, and it would still be awful, right? But the bigger issue is that, if big tech wanted to come in and disrupt, they could, but they'd create what? $1 billion, $100 million, benefit, right? By disrupting.
Yep.
But if they profit from the dysfunction, they create a $5 billion industry. And that is the fundamental core problem with healthcare today, is that there are so many people profiting from the dysfunction of healthcare that not even the politicians want to touch it, because that's many of their constituents that are benefiting from this dysfunction. And so that is actually, I would say, the biggest fundamental problem you highlighted so perfectly. And the No Surprises Act is trying to address that, right?
Right.
But, hey, this is a dysfunction and we need to improve it.
Let's get on to a lighter note. You've and because we could spend some time on that last segment there, but you've been in this industry now for a little over 20 years. You've come across hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals that you've interviewed. If you could sit down with someone, mentor, guide, someone that you look up to in this space, dead or alive, and want to sit down with them and have an adult beverage or a cup of coffee, who would that person be and what are you drinking?
Well, I don't drink adult beverages or coffee, so I'd probably go for a root beer or something like that. Okay. But nice orange soda, ranchata from Italy, that would be nice. But,
that works.
Or, ice cream always works. Go for a chocolate shake. I'd take that. But, it's interesting. I was thinking about this as I was preparing for our discussion. And what's interesting, for me, the real answer is I'd love to do it with friends. My friend Sarah Benight, who works at IKS Health. That's which ironically, when I go to him, that's what I get to do, man. Like I'm so blessed and lucky to hang out with some of the most caring, compassionate people that want to improve healthcare. I think that's what I said coming out of HIMSS as I was on the plane flying home. I said, man, I am so blessed to work with so many people who really want to do good. They really want to improve patients' lives. So I would say, that I get to live that and it's beautiful. But, one that I would do that I haven't done fully, I've met her a few times, but one that I would love to just, break some bread with, and have a long conversation with is actually Judy Faulkner from Epic, right? I mean, she is the most curious individual. And I did do this once. I was at a Chime conference, and I was sitting there having breakfast, and she came and sat by me, and I was like, "Whoa, this is kind of crazy," you know? Like,
Right.
You know, she just sat down by me. And by the way, I learned she wasn't sitting by me; she was sitting by the CIO next to her. And the CIO next to her, she, you know, anyway, she was talking to him and doing it. And then the guy left, and she said, "You know why?" She's like, I needed to sit by him. And she told us why, which was really interesting. She's like, "I went to visit their site and I had a flight delay, and so I made it late, and I needed to apologize to him. And I felt so bad that I delayed it and whatever." And like, you saw that, I saw that, and I was like, wow, this is why Judy has been so successful at Epic. She cares about her customers more than anyone. And so, you know, like, certainly, I don't think she knew what she was getting into sitting next to me as a media guy. And she was actually super kind, and she's always been, you know, generous with me and whatnot. But, you know, but it was, you know, interesting to see that interaction. And I would love to hear more about her story and how her perspectives, you know, from what I hear, she, you know, she's getting up there in age. She should be retiring, but she loves what she does. She's still in the office doing the grind of running Epic, because I think she feels it makes a difference. And so, like, hearing from someone as passionate as she is with this, I would love that.
Well, she too may have an inbox of 5,000 tickets of people wondering, how are we going to fix this? So that would keep you, that would certainly keep you busy. But no, I think it's a great one. And I want to close with kind of the speed round. So word association, kind of like we used to play as kids. And I'm going to mention a couple of things, and it's, you know, the first thing that pops into your head. Could be a sentence, could be a phrase, could just be a reaction. Ready? The healthcare initiative of quintuple aim.
It'll be Googleplex aim soon enough.
I share your sentiments. The statement when people say social has no ROI.
If you do it wrong, you're right. But if you do it right, I mean, it's a connection to people. It's amazing.
And last one, first thing that pops into your mind when I say fax machines.
The first thing is the most inoperable part of healthcare, and how sad is that?
Amen. Couldn't agree more. And it frustrates me to no end when someone says, "Can we fax that to you?" I'm like, no, you cannot. You'd have better luck with a carrier pigeon. I don't have a fax machine. John, I can't thank you enough. It has been outstanding. And I do like some of the lessons that you provided with regards to the media side of things and the content creation, the time you have to invest. Any other wisdom you want to share with people who might be thinking about a career in healthcare, specifically in the tech side of healthcare, that you've learned from over the last 20 some odd years?
I mean, I think it's a simple concept that I see over and over in everyone that I talk to and everyone I meet with. And this is true on the health IT side. It's true on the media side. It's true on the marketing side. And it's all about the people. It's about the people that you interact with, the friendships you make, the connections you make. The network that you build is the key to success. It's the key to success in the career. It's key to happiness in your career. It's, you know, doing that. And you know, I take a unique approach, and we do it as Sway Health. We talk about it as a community principle. I call it give before you get. You know, and I think that's true for people. Find how many people you can help, whether you're at a conference or whether it's online. See how many people you can help. And then you'll be shocked about how much you receive in return, and not in a transactional, I'm going to help you, so you help me. Help as many people as you can, and it will transform your career, your success, your happiness, and you'll just enjoy those relationships so much more. So that's what my biggest suggestion is: find ways to give to as many people as possible, and you'll be astounded on how you are blessed and how you benefit from it.
I completely agree. And one of the things you said in that philosophy is that it can't be transactional. You're not doing it to get something from the other person. You're doing it to do it. And by the way, this isn't quick. It's not, we suffer from immediate gratification these days and wanting to get something in a second. This is a lot of work. Media and marketing, healthcare media is a lot of work. But if you're continually giving value to people, that work will be rewarded. And it's amazing how often it happens, both professionally and to your point about it's going to help you psychologically, and you'll be amazed and blessed with the results. I think that's outstanding wisdom, and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I look at it, what we build at Healthcare IT Today is our health IT community, and Sway Health is our healthcare marketing community. And we use that word community in a real way. It's a community of people that want to help each other. You know, like when I use this example, when you go across the street and say, "Can I borrow an egg?" That's not a transactional relationship, right? That's, I needed something. Yeah, I have it. I'm happy to give it to you. And that's what happens in communities of people, is if you give to all these people with no expectation of return, then, but you receive so much in return, you're just not sure who from or how. And that's the beauty of a community.
Awesome. I appreciate the thoughts, the wisdom, the sentiment, and certainly your time invested. I thank you so much, John. Lynn, I wish you the best of success going forward, and I'm sure we're going to cross paths at a conference soon.
I'm sure we will. Thanks for having me on. This is a lot of fun.
All right. Cheers. Talk to you soon.